Grief is a heavy and vulnerable conversation to have. This platform is a safe place for all individuals to come share their life's journeys of surviving grief without judgment.
I'd like to welcome you to the QT Surviving Grief podcast. Today, I have a special guest with me. He is an educator. He's actually one of my family members on my mama's side. So I would like to introduce to some and welcome Mr. Garland Brown.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank you.
welcome, welcome. So happy you're on today. I want you to just start off by you just telling the people a little bit about who you are.
Well, I am Garland Brown. Most people know that I've taught criminal justice at Central High School since 1995. Um, what others may not know about me is that I am the oldest son of Lena and William Brown. My grandparents was Florine Duke and George Duke and J.C. and Francis Patrick. Um, I've lived in Columbia just about all my life. I came back after being in Nashville for about 5.5 years, came back to Columbia. Before I started teaching, I worked at the courthouse in the as a YSO, which is youth service officer. I worked for Columbia Area Mental Health as a case manager. I work for Columbia Cares Incorporated as the liaison that they have for the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. Um, we were working in a juvenile delinquency prevention program, and that led me to go into education. I was hired at Central by Mr. Stewart, Glenn Stewart, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
fortunate enough to serve the people of Columbia for the last 30 years at Central High School. Um, One of the other things that people may not know about me is that I'm on the selective service board. Now I've graduated from the regular board. Now I'm on the appeals board. Thank hope to God we never have to use that. But if you don't know what the selective service board is that if we have to
Mm-hmm.
have a military draft, that is who selects the people to go into the draft. Um, I've been on
Gotcha.
numerous boards in Columbia. I have done all kinds of things and served the community and try to be a good public servant to the people.
Speaking of your tenure in the education system, one thing I do remember when I was in high school, one thing you always pushed was the importance of historically black colleges and universities.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to do an icebreaker question for you. What would you say would be the difference between attending a HCBU versus any other college? Like, what do you get from being in that type of environment?
If you are an African American black person, it's very rare for y'all's generation and generation coming up now. It's been very rare for you
Mm-hmm.
to have been in an environment that your people who look like you, have created to for the empowerment of you. Um, and this is kind of bad to say this now in retrospect, but you guys have never had that opportunity. So when you get into a situation in which you are being educated by your people, you are being pushed by your people, you are seeing people who look like you, not in the stereotypical fashion. Uh, our people
Mm-hmm.
is presented to the world as hoochies, gangsters, slaves, in some type of negative concept. And when I went to Tennessee State University, one thing that I was always impressed with was that I was seeing people who look like me, who talk like me, who had the same interests as me, and they were being educated.
Mm-hmm.
And you were not being judged. You didn't have that feeling of being judged and somebody doing something to you because you were black. You were around your own people. So that helped me grow as a person. And when I say that, it's hard to explain unless you actually be in that situation. Because for I went to College Hill Elementary School, where at College Hill Elementary School, 90% of my
Mm-hmm.
teachers were black. The about 85% of the kids who went to College Hill were black. So it was a culture shock to me to go to Withorn in the 7th grade at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're dealing with things you were having to. In my situation, because I was a little bit advanced of a student, I was being in classes with
Mm-hmm.
kids who were white, and those kids that were white and were their parents and their grandparents were at the movers and shakers of the city and the county. So you were kind of being placed, you were an oddity if you were intelligent, and we sat in classes like that and you were the only student. It was only one or two other black people in the class. In my case, it was usually three or four
Mm-hmm.
of us in those classes. And when I went to Tennessee State, it was just like I was being let out of a cage. And I really appreciated that and thrived under um, one of my professors she's still living and she's one of my Facebook friends. Her name is Lauren Gators. Miss Gators
Okay.
put her foot in my behind sideways. I mean, she really
Mm-hmm.
demanded that I was going to do something. And I always tell people all the time, if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have graduated from college because I would have gave up and quit. But she was constantly putting in, and
Gotcha.
there were people at Tennessee State like that. And it was a
Mm-hmm.
blessing to me to be in that environment and to graduate. You hear all these things about Tennessee State and hear about HBCUs because it's a cultural mecca for us. It's going to attract everybody. It's not just going to attract
Mm-hmm.
academic people. It's going to attract everybody. So the same people you see on
Right.
the street, they're going to be at Tennessee State. However, the folk who graduate are the folks who make the difference and become what the university embodies. So I was blessed in order to have that environment. I try to tell our people, not because it's a race thing, but you have experienced being educated and being in environments that you were not in the majority. You were a minority. When you go to
Mm-hmm.
HBCU, you become being part of the majority, and it's a different feeling. And then you get empowered to do some of the things that I've been able to do, or speak like I do. See, I'm going to speak like I need
Mm-hmm.
to speak. I don't mince words, and I don't try to. Um, People think I'm arrogant or trying to be ugly with them, but I'm not. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that I don't really want to get off on a tangent on it, but if you're an African American
Yeah.
black person and you're working and you have a voice and you use your voice, you
Mm-hmm.
then get labeled. I've been labeled. I'm arrogant. I'm not. Um, a team player. It's all kinds of terms that they use, and they use these things to keep you out of advancing further. But God's got my back, and I don't worry about those things now because if I don't say what I need to say, then somebody
Mm-hmm.
other black people gonna get hurt by it. And I also say these things because I want
Right.
you to see when
Right.
you run into a person, a black person who is not saying these things, you need to appreciate them even more because they are willing to come in and work in that type of environment with you. And they're going to be quiet, but I'm not going to be quiet. I've been in this ball game too long to keep my mouth
Mm-hmm.
shut. So that comes as a double-edged
Yeah.
sword. It hurts me, but at the same time, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
bend my principles. I'm not going to be a quote unquote token. I want to make sure my
Mm-hmm.
version of reality is expressed.
Yeah. That's you said a mouthful. I've always looked at you as someone who just wants to see our people progress. And
Mm-hmm.
even me thinking about being a little girl, when Mama worked at Central, I can just remember the push. It was you, Miss Victoria Williams,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Joe Cornelius. Like we had Elevated Young Minds. Like I'm just thinking now, just all these things. And I think it's important to share that message, if no other time now in
Oh
2025,
yeah.
the importance of supporting those institutions for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna tell you, I just appreciate you for giving us some insight into what those colleges and universities stand for. Um, but yeah, I thought what kind of icebreaker can I do? And I'm like, that's probably the perfect one because I've never had anyone come on this platform and talk about the importance of them. So thank you so much. And I know we have a lot of grounds to cover today. So I think first
Mm-hmm.
we're going to kind of go into, of course, we talk about grief on this podcast. So we're going to kind of
Right.
go into personal grief. And then later on, we'll talk about the ministry of education, which I'm so
Okay.
excited to talk about that piece with you. So I want to start out, Mr. Brown, by just asking you, do you remember the first time you experienced loss or grief?
Yes. Very well. The first time was my grandfather. I was 8 years old, and
Okay.
my grandfather had cancer most of my life. And I before I started school, my mother would always go with him to the doctor. So I was going to the doctor with him, and he eventually passed away when I was 8. And I remember that very well. It
Mm-hmm.
was we, he was a very loved man by his children, and uh, it was very hard as an 8 year old seeing your mother crying and you didn't understand why. So that was the
Mm-hmm.
first time that I experienced it and got to go through the whole, thing with, you know, my buddy's gone, seeing my grandmother go through what she went through and my mother and the rest of the family. When I was
Uh-huh.
9, my friend died. And that was something
Okay.
that, that really kind of shook me a little bit more than my grandfather passing away. Because when he died, I internalized it as that he was old and he passed away. But when my friend died, he was the same
Mm-hmm.
age as I was, and he died from a sickness as well. And um,
Okay.
I tell people all the time, I remember the last time I was with him, saw him. His mother called my grandmother. I was at my grandma's house, and she said, well, he asked her if I could go to the park with him, and we went to play, and we went to the park, and we stayed at the park we played a long time. We just had a good time that day. And
Mm-hmm.
I came back home. He said, we gonna go again next week. I said, okay. I tell your mama to call my grandmama. And that was the last time I saw her
Mm-hmm.
living. They put he was
Mm-hmm.
he went to can't he had leukemia and he got sick and he had to go into treatments and stuff. And I remember coming home from school and they telling me that he had passed away. And that was really hard. That was
Mm-hmm.
really hard. They made me an honorary pallbearer at his funeral, so I had to sit, and that was hard. That was
Mm-hmm.
hard I knew it was hard for his mom and his dad and his family and stuff. I knew it, but that was very difficult, and it took me a while. I remember my mother asking me, "Are you okay?" And my mother was trying to get me to talk about it, but I never talked about it at
Uh-huh.
all until I got grown. And when I became a grown man, one day I found his picture. They took a picture of him and it was in the newspaper. And it
Mm-hmm.
was that day we were at the park, and all of that came back to me, and I remembered how I felt about that and everything. And I said, Now I remember my mother asking me. I remember my grandmother asked me. I remember Miss Porter at College Hill. She
Mm-hmm.
was asking me about it because it happened like right before school got out, and I didn't talk about it,
Gotcha.
but I felt it,
Mm-hmm.
and just
Yeah.
going through
Yeah.
that, and I remember being at the funeral. We used to have a baseball
Mm-hmm.
team of men, and if you talk to your dad about it, he could tell you they were called the Sluggers, and they
Okay.
used to play at Fairview Park. And the men who were
Mm-hmm.
on the Sluggers, I believe, was some of his pallbearers. And I remember seeing grown men crying at that funeral. And I mean that's
Mm-hmm.
something that that really, I was like, man, I said, this is heavy because they crying. I didn't cry. I didn't cry during the funeral at all.
Right.
But it still
Gotcha.
affected me. It was still an effect there. So, but I
Uh-huh.
still
Mm-hmm.
remember it.
Mm-hmm.
It came back to me, and that's something I had to deal with. Another a death that hit folks in my era kind of hard was when,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm talking about in high school in '85 through '88. I had a young
Okay.
man that I played football with, and we played football from Pop Warner all the way. We were on the same team, Pop Warner, uh, Midget, Withorn, and up to Central. And he died uh, he was drinking alcohol, and he threw up and choked on and died. He was drunk,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that right there kind of
Mm-hmm.
affected a lot of people and things, and but I've always been around death. I mean, it's not uncommon, and that's
Mm-hmm.
something that
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn how to deal with. And people grieve in different ways. That's another thing that I learned and saw is that people deal with their grief in different ways.
Yes, they do. Mm-hmm. That's real. It's funny that you talked about, especially, experiencing your grandparents, of course, and then your friend at that early age, and then talking about thinking about the effects, how that affects children. And a
Hmm.
lot of times, children don't have the words, and it can be really traumatic for them because they don't quite understand. And so I'm glad you brought that point out. And then even with your friend, I'm sure that was a difference because when you're 7 and 8, you're kind of child, but by the time you get older, then that's a difference, understanding of death and grief and what that looks like. So I appreciate you for sharing that. And I think it hits different too, like you were saying, when it's somebody your age.
Hmm.
You kind of know this is the process. When we think about, the order of life, you kind of think, okay, yeah, grandparents, that's the order. But for it to hit you, your age group, your category, it's a
Hmm.
shocker. And it's definitely an eye opener for sure. And it teaches us just how short life really is.
Right.
And so I appreciate you for sharing that. So of all the loss you have experienced, who left a lasting impact on your life?
Well, my mother. Um, that I had
Yeah.
a deacon at my church say something to me when I was 12, and I had the privilege, and
Hmm.
I say it was a privilege working with him. You see these guys with these lawnmowers that they tote around, they cutting yards. Well, Mr. Larry Hackney
Yeah.
did that without the huge machinery that you see that they using now. We did that with regular lawnmowers, and he had one ride lawnmower. And I worked with Mr. Larry Hackney every summer from the time I was 12 until I turned 19, cutting grass with him.
Wow.
And Mr. Larry,
Gotcha.
yeah, I learned so much from being around him as far as my employment and learning how to work in the workplace.
Hmm.
And it's very funny because he was a 70-year-old man, and here I am as a teenager. But he taught me so much, and it's things I remember that he said back then that I use at school now. Okay, but he told me something one day, and
Uh,
you're driving back and forth to different places, and he said that when he said losing your mother, he said you never get over it. He said, I don't care who you are, you'll never get over it. And I didn't realize it until I went, maybe several years after he said it. And my grandmother
uh,
told me that he lost his mother when he was like 6 or 7 years old, and he had to go live with his
wow.
aunt and uncle, because his mother passed away. And that right there, when
Mm-hmm.
when my mother died, I was 53, getting ready to turn 53 years old. My mother passed away. Um, she passed away 6 days before my birthday. We had a funeral 2 days before my birthday, and I
Gotcha.
can't even since then. It doesn't feel right for me to even try to have a birthday. I mean, I can't think about it
Mm-hmm.
because she passed right before my birthday, and I was 52
Right, right.
ish, getting ready to turn 53 when she passed away, and I understood exactly what he said. I saw my grandmother. My grandmother was in her late 70s when her mother passed away, and I saw her. She
Mm-hmm.
said something when we went and passed her casket for the last time. She said something, and I said she just went back to her childhood. When she said something to her mama, she said, "You went off and left me." And I was like, "Wow." I said, "You
Mm,
never, you always a child to your mom and dad. You gonna always be that person. I don't care how old you are." So losing my mother, it was significant, and
right.
losing my grandmothers
Mm-hmm.
that was deep, and my grandparents. But losing my mom, it was a different. It's a different feeling, and you and those are people who are listening to this that lost a mother. They will understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They understand, they know, because it's something that you're not gonna really understand until it happens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I let me ask you this, Mr. Brown. When it comes to your mom, since you mentioned what was her name again?
Her name was Lena. Her name was Lena Brown.
Lena. Okay. I always
Hmm.
like to I always like to acknowledge and
Hmm.
honor
Hmm.
more than anything, the legacy that our loved ones leave. What do you think is the one thing that you learned from her that you carry on and you share with others?
Oh, as a teacher, my mother made us go to school, and I didn't care if you was half dead, you were going, and she made us go to church. I don't care if
Uh-huh.
you was half dead, you was going. And
Yeah.
those when I go to school, my mother would tell me, if I was sick or didn't feel good or something of that nature, she would be like, "Hey, you," she said, "you'll feel better when you get there, because you can't take when you start working. When you don't go to work, you don't get money." And that's something
That's
that a
right.
lot of people don't. They have to learn how to develop. You have to power through a lot of your own feelings because of life, and that's something that she put in me,
Yes.
and I still try to. I tell kids that, and tell them that you have to we are getting you ready. School is to prepare you for life, okay? And you
Right.
don't get
Mm-hmm.
prepared for
Mm-hmm.
life without going. You are going to go through storms in life, and you got to get yourself mentally ready to go through that, because the little stuff that you deal with in high school is not going to be anything compared to what you're going to go to
Uh-huh.
through in life. And that's something that she taught me, and I
Yeah.
continue to try to teach other people about it. And I used to think she was being mean, okay, or being
Mm-hmm.
low down, or she's
Okay.
picking with me or something. And it took me a little bit, we she had I used to pick with her and call. I said, I used to call you Hitler. when I was a kid because she was on top of it. You was doing your homework. My mother
Yeah.
had a routine for us. My sister and I laugh about it now because when we were coming up, we were this time of year in the summertime, hey, you was getting at 6:30, you finish eating, you had to get ready to go take your bath, and you were going to bed. You were in the bed by 8 o'clock. Okay. I was
Mhm.
a senior in high school before I knew what came on after the news went off because and you guys don't even know anything about that because y'all don't have regular TV now, but Gunsmoke used to come on and I finally
Right.
got old enough
Right.
to start being able to watch Gunsmoke after the news went off.
Mhm.
Okay? But
Gotcha.
she was just getting you ready for it. And my senior year of school, Tiffany, when I was a senior in
Mhm.
high school,
Mhm.
nobody had to wake me up. I was up at 6:30 every morning, ready to go. When I went to college, my
Yeah.
mother, I tell everybody the story, and you probably remember because you was in my class. I failed a class as a junior in high school, and it was a 69.44. It was like the closest thing that you could ever come up with making a 70, but I actually failed. And I had to tell my mother when I got
Mm.
home, when she got off from work, I had to tell this woman that I failed this class. And I waited and waited and waited. So finally, the Cosby Show came on. And we watched the Cosby Show. The Cosby Show went off, and A Different World came on, and they was
Mm.
singing the music to A Different World. And when they finished, I said, Mom, I said, I failed algebra. And she didn't say anything. Okay. I said, man,
Mhm.
she's really mad now.
Okay.
And she when the different world came back on and then the first commercial came back on for it, she looked over me and she said, do you want to graduate from high school? And she didn't say anything else to me about it. It wasn't
Mm.
anything else said. Okay. And I
Mhm.
picked with her
Right.
and I used to say you were a master manipulator because you knew how to push that button in me to motivate me to do what I needed to do. And when senior year came, I wanted to graduate. I wanted to graduate from high school. I wanted to graduate from high school. I did for me. So it wasn't anything about you
Right.
know, going to school or skipping school or anything like that. I didn't skip. I had perfect attendance my senior year. I had perfect attendance my sophomore year. So, I was ready. I
Wow.
wasn't playing. When I went to college,
Yeah.
she told me when I went to college, she
Uh-huh.
said, hey, you got one semester. And she said, you go up there and mess up, you'll be right back down here at Columbia State again. And I'll
Uh-huh.
never forget that. And when I got ready to do something I didn't have no business
Yeah.
doing, I always thought about that. And I didn't do it.
Was just building life skills. Honestly, like you say, the things we do early on prepares us, like you say, for life. Um, and that was good. That was good teaching. That's like you say, life is so different now. But when you think even of going to sleep at a certain time, getting your body prepared for what's next. Yeah, it definitely I'm sure prepared you for college and on probably up until now you still hold a lot of those skills and teaching them to your students as well. So I appreciate you for sharing those moments of what she taught you. Okay, Mr. Brown. So one thing you touched on in the last part of your answer was about mental health.
Hmm.
And of course, grief can be taxing on us physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all of that. So my question to you is, how have you handled your overall just well-being when it comes to processing all this grief over the years?
Well, I don't think I processed it well, because especially the older I've gotten, I think I did a better job with it as a
Okay.
younger. But um, in my family in particular, we've had a lot of death in the past 6 years, and recently it's a double whammy in our family because if I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
noticed, but Dr. Cornelius's mother
passed away in October of 22, and
Okay.
my mom is her
Mm-hmm.
sister. So she passed away in February. So it's
Gotcha.
4 months later. So with
Yeah.
our families, we were so close, meaning my sister, my brother, and Dr. Joe and his sisters and brothers, we're very close because they were the two baby girls in the family. And they both had kids that was all in the
Okay.
same
Mm-hmm.
age range. So it was tough on us because uh the normal family things that were going on, we found out that it was my mother and their mother who was the people who were pulling all this stuff
Mm-hmm.
together. So it was this year when we actually started back to our normal family routines and stuff, and act like having Christmas and
Gotcha.
Thanksgiving and things of that nature again, because it really would just
I
tore
see.
tore us up, and I understand that, but um one of the things that I appreciate what you're trying to do, what you're doing, you are trying to do something that we need to do as black people, black men especially, which is
Yeah.
we need to
Yes.
communicate with each other. We need, and like-minded people need to be communicating. Okay. For men, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if we were laughing about this at the barbershop a couple weeks ago. Men going to the barbershop was a therapy at one point in time because it was a place where it was only men together, and we got to talk about things that we didn't want women to hear about, so to speak. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole nother podcast to begin with, because men traditionally cannot open
Uh-huh.
up and be uh seen as being weak. Okay, and that's a question I believe
Right.
that you put on for one of the other questions. We
Yeah.
tend
Mm-hmm.
Men showing emotion can sometimes be a bad thing, and especially black men. We have to be very careful about showing emotion to
Mm-hmm.
anybody, and we need to have our own space to where
Right.
we can do it. And I think it's a couple of guys around here right now in your age group that they're actually trying to do things
Uh-huh. Yeah.
in a Christian setting, and trying to have a men setting where it's like-minded men and folk getting together and just communicating about stuff that's going on that's hidden up, because we don't talk about those things. We're not
Yeah.
open about them, and that takes a toll on your
Mm-hmm.
mental health. Okay, like I said
Yes.
earlier, when you are
Yeah.
working in an environment and you are being talked about, you're being ostracized, you're being questioned on your own abilities, and you are smart enough to look and see it, this guy over here is like, okay, you criticizing me and critiquing me, but this person right here, they're not doing anything either. They're doing less than I am. But you have you
Right.
saying something about me, so we have to make sure we keep our mental health together, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to make you quit. They're trying to make you snap out on them so they can have a reason to
Yeah.
fight, all of those things. So you have to be
Mm-hmm.
mentally prepared for that. And when you're going through grief and you going through personal
Yeah.
struggles, you're not thinking like it. You know what you got dealing with is the only thing that's on your mind. So you can have it. You can be taken advantage of in
Mm-hmm.
situations like that. So that's one of the reasons why we need to acknowledge. And that one thing that happened that I'm happy about. I'm glad I had common sense enough to recognize this years ago. Was I'm happy that I had my wife,
Mm-hmm.
because my wife, when I was going
Yeah.
through the stuff that I was going through, my wife had my back. And when I didn't see something, or if I
Mm-hmm.
was doing something, I forgot something, she was the person who was there behind me. She already had it. She knew she said. I saw you do something. I saw that you forgot something. I went ahead and got
Mm-hmm.
it because I know you're going through something, and I got your back. I'm behind you
Yeah.
100%. So when you got people in your corner like that,
Yeah.
that's good. You got your parents in your corner, and you
Mm-hmm.
got folks that your
Yeah.
cousins,
Yeah.
your
For
church
sure.
members. You got people in your corner that can help you deal with some of
Yeah.
the stuff that you're going through. So that
Mm-hmm.
that's a blessing, and we need to, you know,
It is.
when we talking about acknowledging the mental health struggles, we need to have a network behind us. Our ancestors understood this, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason why family is important. That's the reason why the church is important. That's the reason why your friendships are important.
Yeah.
Because when you going through those times in your life, you need somebody to lean on. You can't go through this stuff by yourself. That's the reason why having a personal relationship with God
Mm-mm.
is important. Because you need somebody
Right.
to lean on when you ain't strong enough to do it yourself.
Yeah. You're right. Takes a community, like you said. It
Hmm.
does. It does. It takes a community. Because like I say, we all go through things, but like you say, if you don't have a community, you don't have God on your side, it's like, what do you have?
Right.
So you're right about that. Um, Let me ask you this then. Why do you think, I'm gonna say us as a people, because that's what we're talking about. Why do we not acknowledge, mental health struggles?
It's a stigma. It's a stigma out there. You crazy. If somebody's got a mental health issue, they crazy.
Yeah,
That's the first thing that we say, and we
yeah.
sniggle, laugh, pick with, so forth and so on. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna also say this
Yeah.
right here that's gonna get real deep. It's also we seeing those things in ourselves that we don't want to acknowledge. Because everybody, oh, let me preach on this for a minute.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Yes.
everybody
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
has a
Mm-hmm.
mental
Yeah.
health issue. Everybody. It's maybe latent. And what I mean by latent in the
Mm-hmm.
term of psychology, latent means it's laying dormant, it's hidden. Okay. But triggers,
Yeah.
okay, you can lose
Yeah.
your mind
Okay.
if you have three or
Yes,
more
sir.
stressors happen to you at the same time. Give you an example. My mother passing away, you losing a job, you losing a family member, or you have some type of health situation take place, or to another person that you close to,
Yep.
you can lose your mind. It can happen
Mm-hmm.
to anybody. And I don't know,
Yeah.
and you got people
Anybody.
don't understand that. People do not understand that. Luckily,
Mm-mm.
I studied psychology
No.
when I was in college and I learned those things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow, everybody has a latent mental illness. And just because it hadn't happened to you or it didn't, you were able to transition through hard times, doesn't mean anything.
Uh-huh.
You need to be looking out for your brother. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. You have to be looking out and help people. And it's so hard in our community, in the Black community. It's so difficult to have people say that because the stigma is you crazy. But everybody that has a mental illness is not crazy. Uh, and we need to be recognizing
Right.
that to help so you don't slip further and get deeper into that the way you can't come out of it. See, when you catch something early, it's just
That's
like
right.
cancer. If you
That's
catch
right.
cancer early, if you may be able to survive it. But it's all about getting over
Mm-hmm.
that stigma of a mental illness, depression. I said,
Yeah.
well, everybody gets depressed. Yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm.
But depression is something that's
Yeah.
hurting. It's killing Black people. It's killing our community. We see it because of
Oh yeah.
what they call deaths of despair. We have deaths of despair, which are
Mm-hmm.
overdoses in our community. Um, a couple years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we were having overdose deaths in the Black community, man, like it wasn't nothing. We've got drug problems. Why do we have drug problems? Depression. Okay, that's the reason why we have drug
Mm-hmm.
problems. Nobody wants to recognize it, but that's the reason
Mm-hmm.
why we have drug problems. Uh,
Yep.
and we need to acknowledge those things. And no, you're not crazy. You have a problem. We need to try to see if we can get you straightened out and get you into a better place mentally, so you can deal with the stuff going on with you.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's true. That's right.
yeah,
And yeah, I just what you were saying, one thing can shift everything for you. And Mr. Brown, I was thinking, don't ever think it can't happen to you. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Um, we all have struggles, but yeah, I mean, I know I didn't it felt like I probably have lost my mind on my journey I'm on, you know.
right.
Uh, but everything you saying is just right. You teaching us. Yeah,
You have to, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, you teaching us.
when, and I'm gonna jump ahead for a minute. It's a question on here,
Go ahead.
and it was a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
question. It says, let me find it here because I think it falls in line with this right here. Um,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
let- it's oh, okay. When you said why do many people don't recognize it's the same topic here. Why you think people don't acknowledge their mental
Okay.
health
Okay.
struggle? When you are in the midst of
Yeah.
something, you can't really recognize what's going on. Just like what's going on in the United States right now, people don't understand what's going on because we're in the midst of it. We are basically getting taken over, and we're having a fascist takeover of the country that these people have put their people in control, and they're moving the chess pieces. So we are not going to recognize what history is going to say about us 30, 40, 50 years ago from now when this is over with. Because the folks in
Mm,
Germany didn't know what was going on with them. The same thing applies to
yeah.
when you dealing with uh, with your mental health. When you're in the midst of it, you don't understand what's going on. I didn't understand
Mm-mm.
when my after my mother passed away and dealing with that, there's things that went on 2, 3 years. Stuff was going on this back in the springtime, and I stopped myself one day and I was like, I'm going through grief. This is what I'm going through, and that's how I'm processing it. I've got to stop doing it. And you know,
Mm,
I probably gained probably 15, 20 pounds after my mother passed away, and didn't even know it. And the reason why is because I was eating, I was going through the grief. Um, One thing that I
yeah.
recognized I was doing, another thing I was doing, I was buying a lot of stuff, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm stressed buying. When you going through stuff, and also it's
Yeah.
other stuff going on as well.
Yeah.
When you going through something on your job,
Mm-hmm.
you dealing with some stress there too. So it's like, okay, let me reassess what I'm
Yeah.
doing and kind of back up, and now I recognize what's happening, and I do things to prevent those things now. So, but you have to catch yourself. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people don't catch themselves. Um, Drinking.
That's
There
right.
was when COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
and COVID made people go crazy in America. COVID was a big thing because human beings are creatures of routine. And when you take us out of our routine,
Right.
it throws everybody off. They can't function well. So when they shut down everything and told people you can't do something, then people snap behind that. I can't
Mm-hmm.
go to the bar and drink. No,
Yeah.
you can't go to the bar and drink. Drink at
Right.
home. The liquor stores was open for people to go get alcohol. They were selling alcohol out of a window. It was like bootlegging was going on again.
Yes.
And folks still
Yep.
was they weren't satisfied. They
Yes.
wanted to get together, and that was normal because we're creatures of human beings need to have other people. If you don't have other people around you, something's wrong. You need to be analyzed and say,
Yeah.
hey, I need to go and be around people. So and then when folks got back
Mm-hmm.
out and people was able to get back out, you start seeing all kinds
Mm-hmm.
of crazy stuff popping off then as well. So we need
Right.
to when you're in the midst of something, you can't recognize it. And that's the reason why you need to have friends. You need to have
Mm-hmm.
real friends and people that can say, hey, you're doing something I'm not comfortable with and I'm worried about you. And when somebody says something like that to correct you, and you don't, you might get mad at them for a minute, or think you can't tell me what I. But then if you got any humanity to yourself, you kind of step back when you get quiet and say, "Hey, I was wrong in this situation."
Yeah.
and try to go and correct that with your brother. You know, I've told several people, hey, I'm sorry because I did something to you and I realized that what I did was grief.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's that connection, Mr. Brown, that we seek as humans. We
Mm-hmm.
seek human connection. And you was talking about how you were able to recognize, okay, I'm spending just out of my grief. I'm overeating, I done gained this weight. You know, I was talking to Keisha Oden today, the salad plug, and we was talking about how you really have to take back your life
Mm-hmm.
when things happen. You have to make a conscious choice to, you know, regain control of your life, and that's a real thing. And it sounds like that's what you mastered during that time. You recognized that and did just that. Like, I'm acknowledging these things that I'm
Right.
doing or not doing, and I need to get myself back together.
Right.
And you right. The pandemic just wiped everybody out. So
People
we just
now.
trying to climb back up the ladder at this point, 5 years later.
Mhm.
Yeah, you right about that.
It makes
You are
me,
right
it
about that.
scares me about things that could happen, and hopefully they won't happen, but they could, because we had a solar flare
Mm-hmm.
a couple of months ago. And that solar flare, when your phone is acting
Mm-hmm.
up or your internet's acting up, a lot of times people want to know what's going on. The sun activity, solar activity goes in what they 11-year spans. We just left a
Okay.
very quiet period, and the sun is acting up again, and you having a lot of solar flares and stuff. We had a solar flare, well, we didn't, but the Earth had a solar flare hit in the
Mm-hmm.
1850s, late 1850s. And they say if that same solar flare happened now, we would probably be knocked back into the 1850s, because it's going to knock out all the electricity. It's going to knock out a whole computers and everything. So if we had something that did that, we would be in trouble, because folks don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
act without technology now. So, you know, that
No, they don't.
pandemic may have been just a preview of some things to come that folks might need to be trying to get ready for.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. We definitely need to stay on alert, because we just don't never know. That wouldn't expect it. So yeah, you're right. You're right. It may have been preparation for something greater for sure.
Right.
Um so let me ask you this, Mr. Brown, as a man or as
Hmm.
a black man, what advice do you have for men specifically who are dealing with grief and mental health? Because we kind of talked about it a little bit, but do you have any specific advice?
Well, you need to seek out like-minded individuals. Um, and you don't have to be going and say, hey, you know, how do you deal with that? You might, okay, but you know, usually
Mm-hmm.
what men
Mm-hmm.
do is that we'll get around people, and when you start hearing people talk about something that you went through, or
Mm-hmm.
that you know they're going through something that you went through, you tend to say, well, you know, I know what you're talking about because I had to deal with that a couple years ago. This is what happened to me, and that's cathartic, and that's
Yeah.
a way for us to start communicating with each other, because women are just gonna talk. Women talk all the time. That's just
Yeah.
females. I mean, that's just the way they are. But
Right.
men don't operate like
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
And stuff that men go through, and that's one of the things. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was Wayne Crowley. I think he's got a little group together that he's doing some stuff with, that that they're, you know, it's basically,
Uh-huh.
hey, you come out, you know, we're gonna talk about stuff. It's a Christian thing. I welcome that, and you got
Yeah.
podcasts. There's a whole lot of stuff going on that people can talk about this stuff with, and a lot of people don't know who to
Yeah.
go to. You know, they don't know who to turn to. And like I said earlier, men, if women are natural with that, because it's something that women are closer together than men. Women go to the bathroom with each other. Men don't.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't going to the bathroom. What would I need to go to the bathroom with you for? It's just a difference. However,
Right.
when
Yeah.
men start talking and get in groups of men that they feel comfortable being around, they'll start talking about stuff. Men cannot be
Mm-hmm.
emotional And that's something contrary to maybe what you would think I would say. But you can't go,
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we have a lot of problems in the black community now is because you got a lot of over emotional men. If a dude say something to
Yeah.
you or disrespect you, and next thing you know, you picking up a gun shooting. Okay. No,
Right.
we don't. That's
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that. Or you
Yeah.
going flying off the handle.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've seen some of these things on Facebook where you see these people fighting in these restaurants and stuff like that. That's crazy. You can't go through stuff like that.
Yes.
You got to
It
if
is.
you get pulled over by
Yeah.
the police, and because you mad, all of a sudden you start cussing the police out. You can go from just getting a ticket to losing your life. You can't. You
Yes,
got to.
sir.
Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X coined a phrase that was very
Okay.
common in the '60s and in '70s. He used to say, "Stay cool, bro. Be cool." When we saying "be cool,"
Mm-hmm.
we thinking about the image cool or being, I'm posted up or doing a cool pose. But what that means is you need to stay cool, keep your head with you. Don't get
That's
bent
right.
out of shape. Don't get
Yeah.
emotional about that, because that can hurt you in other ways, man. And you know, we need to black men need to have safe spots and communicate. If it's
Mm-hmm.
nothing
Mm-hmm.
more than having a friend, okay? My best friend
Yeah.
lives in
Yeah.
Texas, okay? Um,
Okay.
Me and we texting each other, but we're communicating. I have cousins, male cousins that I'm close to. We talking, we
Mm-hmm.
communicating, because I guarantee you, we all going through the same thing. I don't care what you are. My best friend is a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
He has been a doctor for over 25 years. Okay. He's dealing with the same stuff that I'm dealing with on my job. He's dealing with the same thing on his job, and he is a doctor, and he's the supervisor of the doctors at his workplace. But he's dealing with the same thing. So it's real,
Wow.
it's real deep to see that. I talk to
Mm-hmm.
I've got classmates that I talk to, and we kind of close that we communicate with, and I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
ever saw the play Our Town, but the play Our Town is, I don't know if you ever have a chance to get to see it, look at it, because I was like, why is
Okay, I will.
every class that used to do a senior play, every so many years they would do the play Our Town? Well, the reason why is because they're
Mm-hmm.
showing you that even though you are different people, you may be of different race, you may be of a different gender, different church.
Mm-hmm.
If you living in a certain era or come up in a certain time period, you all are dealing with the same things. Right now, my class, my class
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
classmates, we all started having children at the same time. Okay. Now
Mm-hmm.
all of our
Mm-hmm.
parents are
Okay.
starting to die at the same time. Our parents are passing away at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So those things, and,
Yeah.
and, and I look at my parents' generation, and that's, now
Mm-hmm.
they done went through now they are starting to pass away at the same time. So it's real interesting to see that we all dealing with the same things together, even though you may not know it. And and
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
you talking about,
Yeah.
I'll tell you about something that happened. This I had a classmate of mine. I got sick, had just a regular flu, cold hit me. I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling bad, and she was telling me about. She said, "This, Garland, get this right here and take it, and you might start feeling better." And we were talking, and I started finding out that the same things that I was going through during the last month or two of high school, she was going through them too. And we were just having a conversation, and it got to be
Mm-hmm.
real deep, because it was very similar to some of the stuff that I was dealing with personally. And I was like, wow, I said, I didn't know and wouldn't think that I was the only person. I thought I was the only person dealing with that. And she was like, no. Well, it was real interesting because she was dead a week later. She died a week
Wow.
later. And when they had her funeral,
Hmm.
I was getting ready to go to her funeral. And my car wouldn't start. And I missed her funeral. And it was something that
Hmm.
I posted the lyrics to Let It Be, which is a song by the Beatles. And I don't know
Hmm.
if you ever heard it, but it's one of their all time great songs. But I posted the lyrics to that song, and one of my classmates that went to the funeral, she called me and she was like, Garland, she called me
Hmm.
like it was like 12 o'clock at night. And she was like, I hope I didn't wake you up. I said, no, you didn't wake me up. She said, I wanted to let you know that and this girl had really gone through some stuff, and she wasn't on good terms with
Hmm.
her parents at all. And um, the song that they played at her funeral was, and she said everything that they had at that funeral was out of, it wasn't this girl, except for the fact they played the song Let It Be. And I didn't know that they were gonna play it at all. And she called me. She said I had to call you and let you know that because
Wow.
I said, well, that's because I'm in tune with the universe. I said, you know, I didn't know what was going on, but God just put that in my spirit to even post that up there. And she said,
Yeah.
she said, well, she said whatever it was. She said you were in tune to it. She said that was one of her favorite songs. And I said, well, maybe she was telling me, she was still communicating after she left me, you know.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Hmm.
that was real deep about that. But since then, that was back in
Uh-huh.
2014 when she passed away. And since then,
Hmm.
our class has lost probably 8 or 10 people out of our class since then. So we talk about that when we get
Wow.
together and try, and every time I get with somebody, I find out another classmate that passed away that I didn't know about. So those are things that
Hmm.
hit kind of hard. It's like you're saying when it happened to your people, you kind of get, it kind of changes the perspective of things.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And Quinn used to always say, we just spiritual beings having a human experience, Mr. Brown. And what you're saying, with you, that song you posting, and then not even knowing that was what was at her funeral.
Hmm.
Spirit is a real thing,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
and it's deep.
It's real.
It goes deep, and people. I mean, when you're tuned in, you definitely know.
Yeah.
Especially loved ones that have passed on, or just even when you just in divine alignment with whatever. Like that's a real thing, and that communication piece you was talking about is very important. I was just talking to somebody today about how we have that saying in our community: "What goes on in this house stays in this house," and all that type of thing. But the thing about it is, when we're in those open spaces, like what you're talking about, Wayne is doing, you're giving the opportunity to have these conversations, and you don't feel so alone, and you don't feel crazy, like, oh, so and so has been through this as well. Okay,
Hmm.
even if I'm not saying nothing, I'm just active listening. I'm listening to understand. I'm listening, for a reason. So. You're right about it. It gets deep. It really
Oh,
does.
it's deep.
But you have to be in tune with yourself, like you said. You have to be. You have to vibrate on a higher level, than just being basic and at one level. You have to.
Right.
And I think that's important for just understanding and getting through life,
Right.
honestly. So when we think about words really mattering, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, boys, it's the thing, like, men, boys don't cry, or one thing we used to hear a lot about, quit crying if I give you something to cry about. Like all of those type of phrases, a lot of times I feel like we don't always know what that's really doing to us as an adult or as a child,
Hmm.
because what message are we really sending? Do you think there are other things that we say in our community that we really need to shift our perspective on or reframe, in order to, not make it seem threatening or not making people feel shameful. Yeah, what are your thoughts on those type of phrases and phrases like that? And
Well,
how can we reframe
one
them
of
and
the
make them more
one
positive?
of the things I try not to do to my kids and my students and in general is tell people to shut up, because I think people need to. And you
Yeah.
might need to be quiet, but shut up.
Right.
We are. It's several things that you can speak into existence, and we don't need to shut up. We need to communicate. We might need to be quiet. You might need to know when you need to say those
Uh-huh.
things, but you don't need to shut up.
Yeah.
You know, uh,
Yes.
don't. One of the things you just said was, don't talk about this right here. Don't say anything to anybody outside the family about what's going on. You got so many people, man. They're
Mm-hmm.
getting abused. They're going through situations at
Yeah.
home,
Suffering.
and that right there is something that may need to be reframed and rediscussed as well. Because you don't deserve to be hurt
Mm-hmm.
at all. You don't
No.
deserve that type of
No type
treatment,
of way.
and we need to change that big time. Um, but it's it's so much trauma in our community. Um,
Yes,
just
sir, it
the
is.
the
Mm-hmm.
whole, you didn't live before the drug era, but if you went back and talked to your
Right.
parents about, say,
Yeah.
hey, what was it like in Colombia before drugs? And they will tell you some stuff. I mean, it wasn't the trauma. It's just like trauma. We just piling trauma on top of itself, where people can't get healing.
Yeah.
Um, when we tell
Mm-hmm.
the way we used to treat girls when they got pregnant, um,
Yeah.
that was bad, and it led into some bad outcomes. We don't teach sex the way it needs to be taught. Um, and
Right.
and
That's
that
true.
leads to,
Mm-hmm.
I posted the other day, I'm sitting at home watching a program with my wife, and I don't know, I've got a Fire Stick, so if you
Mm-hmm.
got a Fire Stick in Amazon Prime, they have a continuous channel of paternity court. And I'm listening to some of the things that's going on. Well, yeah, some of the stuff that's going on in there is because we hadn't been taught proper, you know,
Right.
etiquette about certain things. About
Yeah.
guys denying that they had a baby, but you was there. How you denying that
Right.
you may not know, and you may need to go through with this
Right.
to
Right.
find
Right.
out, but we those are things that I call self-inflicted
Mm-hmm.
wounds and self-pathology in the Black community that we do,
Uh-huh.
and we need to stop doing.
Yeah.
And we verbalize things. I heard of a young man that I knew growing up. He was gay, and the reason why he never came back to Columbia
Uh-huh.
was because he was gay and he got picked with. And even as a grown
Yeah.
man, he's
Yep.
having to
Mm-hmm.
deal with that right there. That he still has whatever feelings he has about people in the community, where he don't want to see them again. That's something else
Right.
that happens. Columbia is a very interesting place historically, where for various reasons, that's not the only
Mm-hmm.
one, but you have folks that say, when I leave from here, I ain't never coming back no more. Uh, it was another young man in Columbia. We have a friend. She was my girlfriend, and he was like, it was something that happened. People started saying, "Hey, where is she? I can't find her." And he sent me a PM because he knew that I dated her. And he said, "Have you seen her?" I said, "I have not
Uh-huh.
seen her. I have not heard from her. The last time I heard from her is when her grandmother died. And her grandmother died. She was here,
Uh-huh.
and she ain't came back. She didn't come back. Period." So you have things like that to happen, and it's like, what actually happened to you?
Yeah.
You have a class reunion, and when you have a class reunion and people don't show up to it, well, why come you didn't come back to the class reunion? You know what? That's something that a class reunion is something that you recognize as a rite of passage that you still here. You
Yes.
know, because people, some folks that could have been, they're not
That's
here
right.
anymore. A family reunion, same thing. And people
Right.
don't attend. I'm mad at so and so because they took
Yes.
grandmama's cabinet or something. You need to let all that stuff go. I mean, life is too short for that.
Yes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of self pathologies and things that we need to work on, and don't cry. Now, um, I was told that in the neighborhood growing up,
Yeah.
we used to, if we were around the bigger kids, and I'm saying if we were like 10, 11, 12 years old, and we was around kids that was like 16, 17, 15, and you were playing and
Mm-hmm.
you got hurt and you start crying, they would be like ready to beat you up. They would jump and don't cry. If you're gonna be out here with us, you
Right.
can't cry. I remember having a wreck on a motorcycle. I'm
Mm-hmm.
on my bike one time, and I got up and I was like, jumped up, and I was getting ready to cry because it hurt. And he was like, "Don't you start crying? Don't you start crying?"
Yeah.
So those type of things teaches you, how to, it works both ways too. Because I'm gonna tell you another thing. I grew
Yeah.
up in the era our fathers fought in Vietnam or Korea. And then you had the Korean men.
Mm-hmm.
And then the granddaddies was the World War II men in our community. It was a different mindset
Mm-hmm.
when you had men in the community. We don't have any men in our community no more. And I'm talking about, you probably
Yeah.
see this at church. You don't have any men in church no more. And
No.
I
Mm-mm.
mean, we had men.
Not many.
It was men. I'm not talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was like 15 or 20 deep in churches.
Yeah.
And you didn't see a lot of stuff that happens in our community and neighborhood like you see now. Was it stuff going on? Yeah, it was stuff going on. But you didn't see it done in the open like it is. So yeah, it's a
Uh-huh.
different era completely. So, but do we need to tell boys not to cry? Or it's okay to cry, but make sure you do it in your safe spot. That might be something. Hey, if you need to come over, and I've told some guys, I'm gonna jump ahead of talking about something that's in part 2, and we can come back to it later. But we recently had a tragedy back here before
Yeah.
school was out, and guys were really. It was some
Yeah.
guys that were close to him they was taking some stuff the hard way, and they were really. It was some situations that was going on, and I made sure that I told them, see, your mother, Miss Davis, Miss Robertson, those people, Dr. Mack, they not at Central no more. Okay?
Yeah.
So our kid,
Right.
it's very few people in Central that are from Columbia itself. They don't know the neighborhood. They don't know what's going on in the community. So if you come to school and a guy is
Gotcha.
snapping, or something's going on and you don't know and can sit down and have somebody like Miss Robertson to say, hey, I know what's going on with him, leave him in here with me because I know what happened, then that's deep. And
Yeah.
that's something that we're in trouble with right now. Because if you don't have people in your community that know your community, and they not concerned with the well-being of everybody in the community, it's deep. I saw it was a young man, to give you the story real quick. That morning after this
Okay.
boy got killed, a young man was walking down the hall, and I thought he was rapping when he passed me. But another teacher saw it, and the kid was crying. And I said, let him come down here if he'll bring him down here with me, because he doesn't need to be around a
Yeah.
whole bunch of people and being in that situation itself. Because folks gonna be like, "What's wrong? What's happening? What's going on?" And they'll get in it, and he might not want to be like that.
Yeah.
When I'm like that, I want to be by myself, and I've got to get myself together.
Right. Right.
So he may have been made to come to
Yes.
school. I don't know what the situation was at home, but he was upset when he got there, and he may have got to school and heard it. He may have not heard about it the night before.
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
if you don't,
Mm-hmm.
you got to have people at your school. The school system tried, and the people at Central now, they try to do something for the situation, and it's admirable. But they don't know. They're not knowing who the people are. We don't have a principal now at Central that lives in Columbia. They don't know what's going on with the
Mm-hmm.
kids,
Yeah.
and that's bad.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
We don't have
Yeah.
too many teachers
Yeah. It
left.
makes a difference.
Yeah, we don't have too many teachers left that's from Central. From Columbia. Most of our teachers are
Wow.
coming here from somewhere else. They coming here
Yeah.
from Spring Hill. If they live in Murray County, they come from Spring Hill. They coming from Mount Pleasant, or they coming from somewhere outside the city where they don't know what's going on. And then you come up in these teenagers' faces saying something that you don't know, man, that can set something off real quick.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Because they don't even understand.
They don't understand.
Yeah. You're right, Mr. Brown. Mm. And it was so different. Like you say, me thinking back, I know we're gonna hop into it like you said in part two, but thinking back to, it was it was definitely a certain um, I don't know, environment in that family resource center back then.
Hmm.
Even when I was at Central.
Right.
It's different.
Yeah, we don't we
You
don't
knew where you can go, your cozy zone to chill out and just get yourself together and have somebody to talk that's gonna listen and that's gonna care.
right.
Like you said, it's different. It's very different.
Well, hopefully, we got Miss Goodman
Yeah.
coming. She's coming over this year, and they're kind of revamping what the counselors do, and hopefully we'll have some people that's able to communicate with those kids like that, and she can bring it over to the school. But
Yeah.
that goes on into something I'm going to talk about in part two. Like this, that's also a ministry, and you got to have the right spirit to do that. And we got to find
You
people who
do.
have it. And going into education, when you talk about grief, one of the things that I grieved and still grieving is the loss of school, like school used to be. And school's not the same thing that it was 5 years ago. It's a
Mm-hmm.
completely different thing, man.
Wow.
It's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I bet COVID shifted a lot of that too, Mr. Brown.
COVID
Like you
did it.
talking about 5 years ago, that's when COVID hit as well.
COVID did.
Um, so we gonna hop back on. I got two more things on, then we gonna get into this part two about education. What do you think the solution is? I know we've talked about a lot about what issues we kind of have going on, but what do you think the solution is? Uh, just by like providing more mental health advocacy in our community.
Well, the solution is the same that it has been for the last
Okay.
170 years, 160 years. The solution is actually the church. Okay. The churches are going to have,
Okay.
they are going to be the focal point. Now, here's the problem. You don't have people going to church anymore.
Okay.
That comes into
Mm-hmm.
something. So
You're right.
you don't have people going to church no
Yes.
more. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got to the church.
You don't.
The black church is still the focal point and where the launching pad is going to be, but it's not going to be just in the church.
Mm-mm.
It's going to have to be taken into the community. Your social organizations that you have, they're going to have to get involved in it, and that's something that we will have to deal with. But it's going to have to come through the church. It's going to have to come through the church because the
Yeah.
church is the only people where you got
Yeah.
people in the black communities that's got the skill set to deal with it. Because every church has got somebody,
Mm-hmm.
ministers, they got, somebody's in your church that is the go-to person for that. They're going to be the person that can comfort everybody in the church. if something goes on. So it's gonna
Yeah.
have to come from the church, and then
Mm-hmm.
it can spread from there. And you got your social organizations and so forth and so on, and that's how we deal with it. But we got to start it, and some churches do.
Yeah.
Wayman Chapel. Always give a shout out to Wayman, because Wayman has always had a ministry going to where they were dealing with certain types of things that was going on. Uh, they had a ministry.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of the name of it, but it was basically girls, older women, kind of ministering younger girls in that church at one point in time. And um,
Okay.
there's other churches that do that as well. You got some churches that have better youth groups than others. You got some that have better, uh, outreach ministries than others. But that's when I first came back home and I was working for Columbia
Mm-hmm.
Cares, I created a program. James Martin kind of took it from when I left and tried to, he put it, molded it up into his own little thing. But I created a program it was called Peace, Positive Education and Community Empowerment. And the Peace program was
Mm-hmm.
basically I was going to try to network and get various churches in each neighborhood to take over and see, hey, what can your church do to go out and do some of the things that we need to have done? Everybody's not going to be able to do it, okay? Because it's just a fact. You got some churches
Right.
got better this
Mm-hmm.
than some other churches do. So whatever your church is good at, make a inventory of it, and then go out and start
Mm-hmm.
trying to do it. So some churches took it, some churches started trying to incorporate it. Now this was over 30 years ago. So, but some churches did it, some of them
Uh-huh.
did. I know Carmack does some things. I know Mount Calvary does some things. Um, I know Wayman was
Mm-hmm.
doing it. St. Paul is doing some of them. Bethel was doing. Bethel had a program going a couple years ago that was awesome with education. They had an education outreach going on over at Bethel Church. But that's where you're gonna
Okay.
start to see the change in the community. I think after COVID, a lot of things fell down, but we're going to have to get back out there and start picking
Mm-hmm.
those things up because nobody is coming to save us. You're going to have to save yourself, and you're going to have to be the person that saves your community. But looking around, it's just like all this, for Trump. It's like, oh, somebody's got to come save us. No, you got to save you. You're going to have to come out to vote. You're going to have to get off your butt and do something.
Yeah.
Because there's
Right.
nobody coming to save you at all. There's no Superman.
Yep.
Superman is only in a moving comic book.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
You got to save
That's
yourself.
right. Mm-hmm. You right. Yeah, you're right, Mr. Brown. One thing, Carla Walker, she's big on bringing mental health specifically into churches
Yeah.
and hosting these like day Saturdays where she brings in different people, substance abuse, just just different things. They've been doing it at New Day at my church.
Mm-hmm.
She's done 2 sessions there, and so like you said, it take that. You're right, like that's definitely where it's gonna start for sure.
Carla's fantastic, and she's on
Any
point with
solution
what she
building, like
does.
yeah, it
I
starts
mean,
right there.
she's really there
Yes,
with it and in
she
tune,
is.
to what we need to do. But
Mm-hmm.
you have one thing that I found out.
Yep.
I'm gonna let this motorcycle pass by.
Okay.
It's one thing that I found out that's a
Mm-hmm.
pathology in our community is that when we do lean
Okay.
on the churches kind of get jealous, or if it's not coming out of my church, I'm not going to fool with it type of thing, or if it's this person doing it, I'm not going to be involved
Uh-huh.
in it. Or, we have to get out of that mindset right there. We that's something that we have to get out of that
Yep.
mindset with. We're all in the same thing together, and
Yeah.
we need to start recognizing.
Right. Yeah. You right. We gotta get out of it. I guess what they call like crabs in the bucket mentality.
Right,
Like when somebody makes it a cheese, you trying to pull down so you can get back up.
right,
Like this just like make it be even across the board and support one another more than anything.
right.
You're right about that. Um, so we are wrapping up this part one, Mr. Brown. I want to end with this. How do you practice daily self care? I know we talked about a lot of stuff. I
Mhm.
want to know how you practice daily self care.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what I started doing, and I'm really enjoying it right now. And this happened because I found
Okay.
out I had diabetes, and I found out
Okay.
to take care of that and to get that under control, I needed to get more active. So what I do is I walk the neighborhood, and walking the neighborhood does several things. It gets the blood moving in your body, but I have enjoyed running into neighbors. You're seeing people you haven't seen in a while, seeing people that you didn't know lived in your neighborhood, people
Mhm.
speaking and just doing that. That right there has really changed me in the last 3 months. Um, Listening to music. I love Prince.
Okay.
I love
Yeah.
I
You a
love the
big Prince
whole
fan.
70s, 80s music scene. So I'm listening to music. Uh, when I cut my yard, especially, I put my headphones in and I listen to music and have a good time with that. And the last
Mm-hmm.
2 summers, one thing that I've been doing, which can be a little expensive, is just taking care of my hobby. And my hobby is that I collect comic books,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been basically getting comic books and taking care of my comic book collection. It's driving my wife crazy because I'm running out of space with it, but that's something that I really enjoy doing. And I do a lot of reading, and I
Yeah.
haven't been able to read lately, but reading,
Okay. Okay.
um, that's something that I'm probably gonna start back doing this fall when it starts getting colder and can't go back outside. I'll start back to reading again. Last year, one of the things that helped me tremendously when my mother passed away was going back to school. And when I went back to school, that
Okay.
kept my mind off of a lot of the stuff that I was going through as well. And I was able to focus all of my grief got focused into trying to get finished with that degree. So that was something that was cathartic as well. Um, so I'm trying to take more time out for myself. We need to take time out for ourselves,
Yeah.
to do some things that you need to do for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah.
And I'm getting more important. That's more important to me as time progresses. It's just, hey, you need to do something for you today, and I do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good, Mr. Brown. I'm glad you mentioned some of the things you mentioned. Speaking of music, we're gonna wrap with this one, part one. If you could have a song be your life story, what would it be and why?
The song "Mountains" by Prince. And I don't know if you've ever heard
Okay.
of the song, but it came out in 1986,
I,
and it wasn't a big hit with
okay.
Prince.
That's when y'all was born.
Yeah, it wasn't a big hit. It wasn't a
Okay.
big hit by him, but the song, ever since I heard the song at 16, says, "Once upon a time in a land called fantasy, 17 mountains stood so high. The sea surrounded them, and together they would be the only thing that ever made you cry. The devil told you that another mountain would appear every time somebody broke your heart. But I said it's only mountains and the sea. Love will conquer if you just believe." And ever since I heard that song,
Mm,
and it was in a time period in my life, I was going through some stuff. That was one of the songs that carried me through it. I mean, folks talk about gospel songs. That is a gospel song because he's talking about,
uh-huh.
if you have the belief of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. If you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And that's what he was talking about in that song. The devil will come
Yeah.
up and tell you a whole bunch of stuff. You can't good do it, you ain't good enough. But as long as
Right.
you know and you got faith in yourself and your God, you can be able to persevere through anything that you go through
That's
with.
right.
So that song right there, you know, if I had a song that was my life story, yeah, that song right there would be it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I'm about to go back and
It's on YouTube. Go
listen
back
to
and watch
that.
the
That
video.
86 was the year I was
Yeah,
born.
go back and watch the video on that song.
I will. I will definitely do
Yeah,
that.
it's a trip, but
Okay.
it
Okay.
that's something that's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And you know, when I think about music, music is so therapeutic, Mr. Brown.
Hmm.
It really is. You know, it can be really therapeutic. And, you know, I know there's one big thing, Quinn was all in the music. And so, yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's a good way for us to wrap this part one of our interview. So thank you so much. We will be back in 2 weeks with another interview, part two of Mr. Brown's discussion, where we're going to roll into a little bit about education. We will see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye. We hope that today's episode has encouraged you and helped to identify strategies to navigate your grief and begin the process of moving forward in life. Grief Tribe Healing Vibes. What were some key takeaways from today's episode? Drop a comment below and remember to like, follow, and subscribe.